I'd like to welcome you to this closed-door session for a very special presentation. You're about to learn the real truth on how momentum is created in network marketing from a legend in the industry. This will serve as a roadmap to help you rescue the thousands of MLM grinders who don't understand why they're struggling or stuck in the business. So please welcome Agile's first ever triple diamond director and currently Agile's #1 income earner, Mr. Randy Gage.
Let's talk about a rescue operation. I want to talk about rescuing the grinders who are out there trapped in network marketing. Now, to do that, we really got to get ourselves familiar with two different kind of concepts. Concept number one is what we just mentioned, the grinders. And those are the people that are just grinding it out in this business. And the analogy we've often used is the guy at the circus who's spinning the plates on top of the sticks. And he does one, and then he goes second and third and fourth, and then he's got to get back to the first and start spinning. There's so many, probably 95% of the people in network marketing are grinders. And by that definition, we mean if you don't do it, it doesn't get done. It's all about you. Everything that happens in the organization has to happen by you. If you're the one who makes all the presentations, you're doing all the three-way calls, everything comes to you. And if and the thing is, we promote in this business, we talk about lifestyle and drinking out of a coconut and sitting in a hammock and going to Hawaii. But the sad, sad truth is that 95% of the people in the business do not have true residual income. And 98 or 99% of them don't have true passive income. There's a qualitative difference between those two things. What I want for our organization here is I want you to have that true residual income that we've been creating. I want you to have true passive income. So you really could go to Hawaii and spend a month or 2 months or 3 months drinking out of that coconut and know that your organization was continuing to industry initially, not knowing the distinction between legitimate network marketing and pyramids and things. So in their case, and they are also going to see, as we're going to look at the peddlers in a minute, you had a bunch of people in Amway who were at that point just went around selling soap. And it really took until the 70s until they attracted some leadership. And this was leadership who saw the big picture, who started to understand about a system and duplication. And when they put that into place, then you saw that as a company that really hit momentum, did it right, and did it in a big way. And they've created a ton of legacy positions for a whole bunch of people. Okay? So, but my opinion is that can't happen today. You're not going to start a company in 1990 and it's going to hit exponential growth in 2010. Okay? If you don't do it in the first 5 years or so, it really isn't going to happen. Okay? So, now of course, I didn't join a flatline company when I got back involved in the industry. Why? Once again, because I was looking to create wealth, I wasn't looking to create an income. And you can't create wealth in a flatline company because you're not going to outgrow your company. Okay? Even if you're the #1 fastest growing distributor in the company, you know what's going to happen? Eventually, the speed of your group is going to become the speed of the company, and then you will still be going at the speed of the company. And the things that cause that to be a flatline scenario will continue to keep it to be a flatline scenario. And you can't break out and hit that exponential growth curve. You have to do that to get your income. And that doesn't happen in a flatline situation. Now, a lot of these flatliner companies, you know what most of them, many of them are nutritional companies. And you know why they're flatline companies? Because they don't understand that formula, which we've talked about, which is get a large group of people to do a few simple actions over a consistent period of time. Because see, how many times have you been to a presentation for a nutritional company and it's a 2 or 3 hour medical seminar? Right? And they wonder, why are we only signing up doctors and nurses? Because the average person doesn't see how they could do that business, and that's why it doesn't hit the formula, and that's why they flatline year, and they only have incremental sales increases, or they have decreases, or the only way they're able to raise their sales is to open up new markets. I think about back in, you all probably know the company that had Chinese herbs, right? I remember going to the presentation, you'd go in and they say, and 5,000 years ago, back in ancient China, the herbal doctors took the tree bark and put the root and put it together with this, and they mixed it together, and yin and yang and shming and shmang and wah, wah, wah. This goes on for an hour. You go out to dinner, you come back, and then they're like, and then 4,000 years ago. Okay? Doesn't fit the formula. So let's look at category number 4. This is what I would call the peddlers. Okay? And I say that because these are the direct selling companies. These are the buy it for a nickel, sell it for a dime kind of deal. And just so you know, by the way, in terms of growth, they could be low growth, slow growth companies. They could be medium growth companies. They could be high growth companies. They actually could have very high sales. In fact, there is several of these companies that are billion-dollar companies. Yet even though they're billion-dollar companies, they never hit that exponential growth curve, and they don't create the legacy incomes that we're talking about. Why is that? Well, because we're dealing with the dynamic of sales. Those are selling deals. Now, one of the things we've got to understand, of course, is the formula for creating wealth in the business. And in this organization, you know, this is our mantra. We talk about it over and over and over again. You get a large group of people to do a few simple actions over a consistent period of time. That's how you create wealth in the business. That's how you become a millionaire in the business. Well, here is the fact of the matter. 90% of the people in the world are non-sales types. 10% of the people in the world are sales types. They love to sell. They go around in their car all day and they listen to Brian Tracy tapes and they get all fired up and they say, oh, I love to hear a no. Because I know after I hear 9 more no's, I'm going to hear a yes. Okay? And they're driving around listening to those tapes and they're all excited. That's 10% of the population. 90% of the population is like me. They don't know how to sell, they don't want to know how to sell, and they're deathly afraid of rejection, right? And if they get rejected, they're ready to slit their wrists, okay? That's 90% of the population. Now, if we take the formula and say we want to get a large group of people to do a few simple actions over a consistent period of time, which of those two groups should we be going after? The 90%, of course, right? But what do most people do? They go after the 10% because they don't understand the distinction in the business. And this is very important. This is $1 million tip, so make sure you get this. The distinction between the small business and the big business. See, the small business is the retail model. And these are the people with the buttons and the bumper stickers and the magnetic signs on their cars. And they're going around putting yard signs at all the intersections. And they're driving around town delivering fiber tablets to people every day and calling them up the next morning to see if they had their first bowel movement. And, okay, They like to play store. You go to their home and they have the spare office. They say, let me show you my office. And you go in and they've got restaurant supply shelves. And they've got, and here's the protein powders. And they got 5 cans of the strawberry powder and 5 cans of the chocolate powder and 5 cans of the vanilla protein powder and 10 bottles of vitamins and 20 bottles of this. And they got people coming by all day picking things up. And then they got magnetic signs in their car and they're driving around delivering. That's the small business model. Now, of course, I wrote about this in one of my newsletters, and one of my friends wrote me and said, well, look at Herbalife. They win in exponential growth, and they do all that stuff you talk about. They got the button, lose weight now, ask me how, 30 pounds in 30 days, and the yard signs. But let me tell you a secret. The big level people in that company, making the big checks, they're not doing that stuff, are they? Because who's doing that stuff? The grinders. But most people don't know the difference. Even people who've been in the business for 15 or 20 years don't know the stuff I'm telling you right here, because they've never stopped, took a step or two back, and been a critical thinker and thought about, okay, what has caused companies to hit exponential growth? The people who make the big checks, what do they do? The people who grind it out, what do they do? And they've never done that critical thinking process. Okay? So anytime you see this, the direct sellers, the peddlers, you're not going to see that exponential growth curve, and you're not going to be able to apply the formula, because 90% of the prospects that you approach will not fit into the formula. Okay? And you see this over, and I'll tell you where else you see this a lot is in the party plan companies. And let me give you an example. And of course, I'm not picking on anybody in general. We're just talking about these kind of companies. But let's suppose I'm in a particular company and we make plastic food containers. Okay? And I want to sponsor her into the business, right? So what do? I'd say, oh, guess what? We're going to get involved in the business. And you know what? I know you want to get in this business, but I'm going to pick someone else because I'm going to get away from that speaker where I'm getting feedback. We're going to put you in the plastic food container company, okay? So what do? We say, hey, guess what? I got this thing, and you're going to be able to get free plastic food containers. And they work in the refrigerator, and they work in the freezer, and when you got leftover lasagna, you put it in, and it's airtight, and if you cook the green beans, you put them in, and you put in the refrigerator, and you're going to invite your friends over, we're going to have a party, you're going to make money, and you're going to get free containers. Wow! Right? Well, she's so excited, she can't wait, so she signs up, she gets going in the business, right, Connie? What happens? We have her first party. She invites 15 people. They come over. Everybody's excited. Everybody's buying plastic food containers. And she makes $190, and she gets 12 free plastic food containers. I mean, life doesn't get any better than that, does it? What happens next? Then can we say, now, listen, we need to schedule your next party, okay? Now, she does her next party. Now, it's a little bit harder this time, because she doesn't get 15 people to show up, does she? She gets 5 or 6. And you know what? She doesn't need any more free plastic food containers, okay? So she gets her 5 or 6 people there. She only makes $40 the second party. She doesn't need any more plastic food containers. And then what happens for party number 3? I'll tell you what happens. It never happens. Okay? If I'm lying, I'm dying. Okay? Talk to anybody who's in a direct selling company and ask them about 90% of the people they bring in, they never get to the third party, do they? Why? Because 90% of the people are non-sales types, and they're not comfortable with the selling situation. Now, of course, this is going to beget the question. People are going to say, well, come on, Randy. Obviously, somebody has to sell the product, right? Somebody has to be selling something somewhere. Well, here's what you got to understand about the network marketing business model is 80 to 90% of the volume produced in the business is consumption of people who are in the group. Like me, I use 5, 6, 7 boxes of Agile products a month myself. Everyone in this room uses those kind of numbers. Why? Because we're educated about the products. We know how they work. We know why they're good. We follow the directions. In other words, people who are in the business, they're good customers. The guy who owns a mobile station, he doesn't buy gas at the Shell station. Okay? Everybody buys from their own store. So you have all these people who buy from their own store, and they use it. They use it, and they follow the directions. They're good compliance. They get great results. And so it creates a lot of volume. And then, of course, we go out, we approach people about the business. We're going to come across a great number of people who will decide they don't want to do the business, but they will want to use the products. And, of course, we sign them up at a company like Agile. You don't need a white van. You don't, because see, that was one of the reasons I joined Agile, so I knew I wouldn't have to put a magnetic sign on the side of my Viper. Okay? I'm not putting one on there. I'm not putting one on the Bentley or the other Viper or the Vet. You know what I mean? We don't have to do that. We have a preferred customer program because we're a state-of-the-art network marketing company. So we have those kind of programs who can service the clientele, the customers, and we don't have to play store and we don't have to be driving around delivering all the products, right? But let's go back to the big issue, of course. That's the play store thing. That's the small business model. And that's the perception that most people, that's the only perception they have of the industry. Because they go around and they see all these people with the buttons and the bumper stickers and the magnetic signs and the yard signs at the intersection and the flyers on the windshield, and they think it's a sales business. So even if they're a non-sales type, they get excited, they want to make some money. What do they try and do some sales things. But of course, they face some rejection, they face some frustration, they drop out, and you have astronomically high churn ratios. So you will see the party plan companies, the cosmetic companies, the legal services companies, the long distance services companies. All of these are really selling deals. And they're going to appeal very well to the 90%. They're not going to appeal, to the 10%, but the 90% aren't going to want to touch them. So you don't get the true duplication because you can't apply the formula. Now, it doesn't mean that some of these won't have high sales, because some of them will. Like I say, if you look at Avon, this is $1 billion company. Mary Kay, if I'm not mistaken, is $1 billion company. So you can have insurance is another one. You know, insurance is a great direct selling thing. But if you've got to go and get licensed and pass a test and study, how duplicable is that? Are we going to get a large group of people over a consistent period of time to do that? Of course not. That's going to be geared to the 10%. So, obviously, I did not join a Category 4 situation when I got back in the business. I was looking for Category 5. And guys, this is the holy grail of network marketing. What we're looking for here is a start-up company that has a viable probability to become the next billion-dollar company. That's where we're at with Agile. That's why I joined Agile Enterprises. Now, here's the thing you got to understand. All of these categories, they're all going to try to seduce you with the dark side of the force. Okay? When you go to the airplane game, when you go to any one of those schemes, they're going to tell you, and by the way, I checked this out, it's legal. By the way, my lawyer is in the business, or I got this letter in the mail and he says he's a lawyer. Because does not every single chain letter in the world have a quote from two people who say they're lawyers at the top to say they're legal? Of course, but they're not legal, they're illegal scams, okay? And it's not that they're lying to you, they believe it. You know, psychologists call this confirmation bias. We see things that we want to see. There's a lot of people struggling in mediocrity out there, a lot of people looking to make money. They get offered some opportunity to go out and become wealthy. They jump at that opportunity and they lose their sense of reasoning, okay? So those people in those companies, they really believe that they're going, and like I say, if you don't have the perspective that the leaders here have, you don't know any better. You're going to put that magic pill in your car and you're going to say, yeah, I get better gas mileage. Or you're going to sign up for that deal and you're going to make 10% a month on your money because they tell you that they're converting it into foreign currencies. Well, you don't know that they're taking the money from the people that you refer to it to pay you off. And you don't know it until the thing collapses. And then you've brought in your people. And that's when, and I have a dear, dear friend of mine who was in my organization some years back, and he actually got in the airplane game. And he told me, Randy, I know it's a scam, but you know what? I need the money. Everybody knows what it is. We're all big kids. We're doing it. I saw him about a month later. He came to see me. He had just piloted it out in the airplane game, which at that point, I think he got about $40,000 in cash. And I knew because he owed me some money. He came over, he had this wad of bills big enough to choke a horse, and he started peeling off hundreds. I just piloted out in the airplane game. Man, you should have joined, I told you. Well, you know what? I ran into him about 5 months later, and he told me it was the worst mistake that ever happened in his life. Because, of course, he brought in dear friends, he brought in family, and you know what? They took their kids' college fund. They took their 401 money. They took whatever savings they had, or they borrowed the money, they put it on credit card, they joined one of those things, and then, of course, it failed, like those schemes always fail. And that's when people get hurt. Okay? But the people involved, most of them are not crooked people. The people who start them, absolutely those are crooked people. Those are very evil people. But you know what? They just find a lot of gullible people who are greedy and they're trying to get something for nothing, and then you get sucked along in it. So I'm educating you. I don't want anyone here ever looking at anything like that. Okay, now the Category 2 people. What do you think is going to happen if we go to one of their meetings? Somewhere this week we find a meeting here in Orlando for one of those big Category 2 companies. What are they going to tell us at the meeting? They're going to say, yes, we hit the exponential growth curve back in 1970 or 1980 and 1990, and we're just about to hit the second exponential growth curve. Now, they're not lying to you. They believe that. They drank the Kool-Aid. They drank the Kool-Aid, okay? But what do we know? We know that for the last 60-some year history of the industry, it has never happened yet, okay? So what's the odds it's going to happen? Okay? Same thing. You're going to go to those flatline companies, and they're going to say, hey, we're 18 years old, and we haven't hit the exponential growth curve yet. We're 23 years old, and we haven't even hit our stride yet. When we hit that, we've got people making this income, that income. Again, it doesn't happen. We see it. Just if you've been around for 20 years, like we've been around, you see, that doesn't happen. They believe it because they bought into the hype. They have the confirmation bias. But the truth is, they will always be grinders because they will always be waiting for that exponential growth curve that's never going to come. Okay? And then finally, we have the direct selling companies. Now, if we go to one of their meetings, what they're going to trade on is their reputation, their credibility, their years of in the industry. They have a solid reputation, and they're, you know what? They're also going to have people who have good incomes. So they'll have people that are doing the $10,000 a month and the $30,000 a month and maybe a $40,000 a month or whatever. But the thing you got to understand is, they could be $10,000 or $20,000 or $40,000 a month grinders. Because you know, if you're in one of those legal services plan, you got to get in 40 people this month to replace the 40 that dropped out last month. If you're in one of those long distance companies, you got to get in 40 people on the services to get the 40 who dropped out last month.